What's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Top Gamer here to give you another one of my top 5 list videos to share with you guys today. Now, I recently had a chance to actually go back and actually binge the entire first generation of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is easily one of the best animes I actually saw growing up. And even looking back at how old that series was and the quality of dueling that entire generation of Yu-Gi-Oh! Had, I must say that a lot of those duels really still hold up and are fun to watch even today. But despite having so many amazing duels and so many amazing characters, I couldn't help but wonder that there was also a lot of what-if duels or even dream duels that we really missed out on. And I thought, what are the top 5 dream duels that I think realistically could have happened in the actual storyline of Yu-Gi-Oh! That I really would want to see? So I figured I'd do a whole video on it. So before I go into my top 5 favorite dream duels, I would like to state right now that this entire list is focused specifically on the entire first generation of Yu-Gi-Oh! If someone wants me to do GX or 5Ds or Zeta, if I remember correctly, maybe I'll do one of those videos later in the future. But this is strictly focusing on Generation 1, and we are strictly following with the rules that the main story of this entire generation actually played through. So there's a lot of duels that, certain characters just weren't in the same place or just couldn't have happened for specific reasons. So those are the rules that I'm following for this video. So before I jump into my top 5 list, if you happen to enjoy this video by the end, please, I would really appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up and make sure to press the subscribe button if you happen to enjoy this video and like to see more content from me. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into my personal list, and we should start off with number 5 of my all-time favorite, ultimately wanted dream duels for Yu-Gi-Oh! Generation 1. And the first duel on my list has to be... Taking the number 5 spot on my list is a duel that I'm sure most people would not really expect to see, and that would be to see the team of Atem and Yugi face off against Siegfried Lloyd during the Grand Championship story arc. Now, I'm going to say this right now, that the whole Grand Champion story arc itself is very forgettable, and Siegfried as a villain is not compelling at all, with motivations that are so weak that it's almost sad. But as a duelist, he really was the only new duelist that appeared that I thought was really impressive, and during that arc, it is very much assured that this duel could have happened had Kaiba not interfered and challenged Siegfried himself. Now, while I have no doubt that the team of Atem and Yugi would be able to defeat Siegfried, the combination of Siegfried's Valkyrie deck along with his use of the Golden Castle of Strongbird, which I must say was extremely effective against Atem and Yugi when Siegfried's younger brother Leon used it in their duel. Siegfried is one of the few duelists in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Who has dueled both Joey and Seto, so he certainly would be able to present a very serious challenge to Atem and Yugi to overcome, which means that it would certainly be an entertaining duel for us fans to witness, which is why I placed it 5th on my list. Taking the number 4 spot on my list is the only dream duel I can think of that includes the one and only Joey Wheeler, and as an opponent that I think would make for an interesting duel to see him take on, and that would be to see Joey Wheeler challenge Evil Bakura. Now, Joey Wheeler has really had an impressive duel career over the course of the series, and he has proven that he can challenge some of the very best duels that the first generation of Yu-Gi has given us, and seeing just how well he did against Merrick, being literally one attack away from defeating him, got me thinking of how well he could do against Evil Bakura. Now, Evil Bakura has only taken part in 6 official duels, and while he does have an unimpressive record of 1-4-1, he has nevertheless shown to be a credible threat against even some of the best duelists like Atem, Yugi, and Kaiba. So I think a duel against Joey would ultimately force him to have to step out of his comfort zone. Most of Joey's best moves rely on luck instead of skill, and that can only help you for so long until Joey's luck runs out, as it did in his duels against Seto Kaiba and especially Siegfried from the Grand Tournament arc. So what you would ultimately see in a duel between Joey Wheeler versus Evil Bakura is Bakura's approach of neutralizing an opponent's options and wearing them down over time, going up against Joey's reliance on luck and drawing what he needs at certain moments in order to make the best moves that he can when the opportunity arrives. Both duelists would be facing an opponent that is very different from what they're used to, and because of that, I could see this duel going either way. But as long as Bakura doesn't make the stupid kind of mistakes like he made in his duel against Merrick, or Joey let the minor levels of success that he would certainly experience against Bakura get to his head, making him overconfident, which by very nature would expose him to moves that he wouldn't be expecting, then you can count on seeing a very great duel between these two, which is why I granted the number 4 spot on my list. For the number 3 spot, we have to venture back into the semi-final round of the Battle City tournament. Now, out of the 8 finalists, there were a lot of possible duels that could have happened, but the one duel that scares me the most, and therefore has to be a dream duel, will be to see Ishizu Ishtar take on her brother Merrick after his darker side has been released. Now, duels between Millennium item users can be really interesting, but the one thing that makes this one really odd is there are so many what-ifs. Since Ishizu's Millennium Necklace can show her the future, it's uncertain how she would react if events played out in a different way than they did in the show. If she knew that she would eventually find herself dueling Merrick, who at this point would still have possession of the Winged Dragon of Ra, would she have still given Kaiba Obelisk? Would the Battle City tournament still happen? A lot of questions would have to be answered. But let's say that this duel still happens. What makes this duel very interesting to me is that it would not only be a battle between 2 duelists, but it would also be a battle between Millennium items. I'm unsure if Ishizu has the kind of deck that would be able to allow her to beat Merrick at this point, and then there's the question on whether or not Merrick could use his Millennium Rot to mess with Ishizu's visions of the future and throw her off her game. Kaiba was able to use the Millennium Rod to change the future, and that is what ultimately helped him against Ishizu. So who's to say Merrick can't do the same thing? And out of any dream duel on this list, the result of this duel would have serious consequences. Now let's say that Merrick wins this duel. He would then take control of the Millennium Necklace and then go on to take on the Millennium Ring from Bakura, which ultimately means that the results of the Battle City Finals would be decided long before they happen. Joy wouldn't stand a chance against this now souped up Merrick, and Atem would end up facing a duelist who has access to 3 Millennium items instead of 2. It's one thing a duel against Pegasus who can read your mind, it's another to face an opponent who can actively see your moves before you've made them. No amount of friendship or destiny is going to help Atem in that duel, and his defeat would be pretty much guaranteed, and it all starts from this one duel. Ishizu Ishtar vs Merrick would be the ultimate duel of fates in the series of Yu-Gi-Oh!, and that is why I would place it 3rd on my list. Taking the number 2 spot on my list of my ultimate dream duels would be to see my all-time favorite duelist of all time, Seto Kaiba, take on Raphael during the Waking the Dragon arc. Now, I've heard a lot of people view this story arc as being a throwaway season, and I completely disagree. Now, to see Kaiba duel Raphael would be not only a really interesting duel to witness, it's a duel that very much could have happened, and I think plays perfectly into not only Kaiba's ego and drive to be the best, but it's a duel that he personally would want. To give just a little bit of backstory, Raphael was successful in defeating Atem, and once Kaiba heard this, he was not only pissed, he took it very personally. So in his mind, I think he would feel that if he could beat the man who beat Atem, he himself would be better than Atem. And if Atem had been a little bit late reaching Raphael for their second duel, there is no question in my mind that Kaiba would step up to face him. Now, the scary part about this duel is that I'm very unsure if Kaiba would be able to pull off a victory against Raphael. Raphael is an extremely unique kind of duelist, and I'm very concerned that Kaiba may not have the cards or strategy to get the job done, as he would be going up against a duelist that he would need to go in completely blind against, and should he lose and have his soul taken, even if Atem goes on to defeat Raphael, he would have to go on and take on darts by himself, and I find it very difficult to believe that he would be able to pull off a win, as Atem only did as well as he did in this duel because he was fighting alongside Kaiba for a majority of that duel. So while Kaiba versus Raphael would certainly be an extremely interesting duel to watch, it's a duel that I would very much be very concerned for Kaiba, but if he could somehow manage to pull off a win, it would easily go down as one of the greatest victories Kaiba has ever had in his entire dueling career, which is why I would place it number 2 on my list. Taking the number 1 spot and the one dream duel I would love to see more than any other is to witness Seto Kaiba duel Merrick in the final duel of the Battle City Finals. Now, if you go back and actually watch Yugi vs Kaiba's duel during the Battle City Finals, which many people, including me, view it as one of the greatest duels in the entire first generation of Yu-Gi-Oh!, there was certainly a number of moves in the last number of terms which they manipulated how certain cards work in order to make sure that Atem won. Now, that in itself doesn't upset me, as Atem and Yugi are the main characters, so he has to win. But they did get me thinking that if Joey had Merrick beaten, and we know that Yugi could go on to beat Merrick, I wonder How would Kaiba do against Merrick? This is the duel that Kaiba had been preparing for quite some time, and he already had a set plan to take Merrick down, and I would just love to see exactly what he would do. A big reason why Kaiba has always been my favorite duelist is his willingness to study his opponents and formulate a plan. This is a man who thinks before he acts. He's not like Joey who relies on luck, and he's not like Yugioh and Tim who relies on destiny to get him through duels. He is a duelist that prepares for his opponents like any great duelist should do, and that is exactly what I like to do when I duel people. I myself rarely like to go into any duel blind, and while Kaiba certainly has proven that he can duel on the spot against opponents that he's never faced, if he were to duel Merrick, I really believe that out of any duel in the primary finals, you would see the best duel between these two. Against Joey and Yugi, Merrick always seemed to be toying with his opponents, and that ended up backfiring on him. But if you could imagine Merrick being so angry with Kaiba because Kaiba took away his chance to duel the Pharaoh, he'd be pissed and would want to go all out against Kaiba, and I still believe Kaiba would end up winning. What you get with Kaiba versus Merrick is the kind of duel that one would not only expect to see, but once you did, you would be glad that you did see it. And that is why it is the ultimate dream duel that I would want to see. And that about does it for my overall top 5 favorite dream duels that I wish we could have seen during the first generation of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime series. So now that you guys know my overall top 5 dream duels, I would like to know which one of my duels which you personally would have wanted to see, along with what are some dream duels that you guys wish you could have seen. Share your ideas with me and everyone else in the comments down below, and like always, thank you guys for watching, you're awesome, and I will see you next time.